for election of chair, please, for the Exeter Haddock?
I'd like to propose Councillor Michael Mitchell.
Second that. Sorry, can everyone use their mic so we can all hear?
I'd like to propose Andy Ketchen.
Sorry, and your councillor?
Bede.
Okay. Any seconders for that one? Second that one. Any other nominations? So could we have a vote, please, for Councillor Mitchell as chair? Thank you. And I think that's pretty well carried. Councillor Mitchell, would you like to come forward?
Thank you, colleagues, for that support. And we look forward to an interesting year together working on behalf of the residents of Exeter. And I will point out, as chair, I will not be voting as for the vice chair. That is up to you to make the committee decide. I've voted in regard to the chair. And normally I will not participate in the voting unless it's a tied vote after acting as chair. But on matters affecting my own division, I will both speak and vote where necessary. Thank you. Can I now call on nominations for vice chair of this committee, please?
Yes, can I nominate Angie Nash, please? Thank
Yeah, I'll second that.
Councillor Ketchen.
Excuse my ignorance. Can you vote for yourself? Can you? Can you vote for yourself?
It's fine.
Yeah, a member can vote for themselves, and that would have made the vote 5-6 instead of 4-6. But would, if it had affected the outcome, I would have mentioned it. But I noticed the count and those who had not partaken, and it would have not made a difference to the outcome. But I'm more than happy to rerun the vote if you wish to rerun it.
No, Chair.
All right, thank you. Those you're new to local authorities and those not, these are the sort of business arrangements for the meeting. Remind those people, and there are two joining us remotely, if they could mute their microphones, and we'll look for their raising hands at the appropriate time. Remind to everybody present that this meeting is being live screened, so you might find it useful to switch your phones off and put them away. All speakers are asked to ensure to bring the microphone forward to talk into, says he himself, bringing it forward so you are clear and people in the audience and people online can listen. We work on the assumption that people have read the papers in advance. That's both for the members' interest, and there's no need then for also for officers to verbatim go through paperwork. Cabinet members and officers, well, we have no cabinet members present at the moment, and officers are asked to keep their introductions to the items brief, raising only key points to the committee, highlighting the key issues. As I say, please do not share any presentations on screen until the item commences. Next, move on to apologies, and I've apologies from Councillor Bialik, who is at an important local government meeting about the future of Exeter. We wish him well. Item 3, declarations of interest. Has any member of the committee any declarations to declare in relation to the items on today's agenda? No, we can take that as a no. Yes, and if there is an item that does occur that you've obviously missed or haven't seen, please raise that issue at the time. Minutes of the last meeting. Item 4 on the agenda. Which in effect was vastly awkward for most of us who were not present at the time. So I look forward to anyone who was present, Councillor Ledbetter or our colleagues from Exeter City Council, to assume that these are reasonably accurate records, and Councillor Westall, accurate records of what took place at that date. Yes, thank you. Next item is item 5, items requiring urgent attention.
There's just one item. It's just ready to confirm the members' training this morning on the process of the local transport plan, just to confirm in this meeting that it has taken place.
Okay, thank you. We now come on to item 6, which is petitions from members of the public or residents. And there are 2 listed, one present and one online. If we deal with the first one, Owen, keep on saying Councillor Fogham, I forget she's no longer Councillor Fogham. So Owen, if you'd like to come forward to the and you have 3 minutes.
Comfortable these chairs.
Yes.
Are.
No. Whenever you're ready, Owen.
Thank you.
Yeah. 3 minutes to speak. I assume that somebody has got their stopwatch on.
5
Yeah.
minutes today. I bring this petition on behalf of the people affected by the closed roads through COVID. I lost my husband in November through lung cancer and believe living just 53 yards from Bobby Moore's Lane, spending so much time in our garden, the past 4 years of life added to his early death. With the diverted traffic from Dryden Road, Gerald was exposed to high pollutions of cars and buses that had to slow down to pass in Bobby Moore's Lane on reflection. Bobby Moore's Lane is far too narrow to cope with all this extra traffic. By closing Dryden Road, you have cut off access and exits to specialised healthcare units. The Cedars, Southwest Mother and Baby Unit, Watford House Hospital, Southwest Hospice Care, the Nutfield, the RD&E Hospital plus Forces Cancer Unit, for staff, patients, visitors, families, friends, and the emergency services. Thus creating unnecessary excessive pollution through much longer journeys. You're sending all this extra traffic to walk to school routes, which is my anger. Creating extra congestion to our housing estates, affecting so many young people attending Iska, Windstream, Woodwater Lane, St Luke's, St Peter's, St Nicholas and St Michael's, 7 academy schools haven't been affected by all this traffic. Through to Bobbymores Lane, Rifford Road, Burnhouse Lane, Wantford Street, St Louis, not forgetting Topsham Road, exposing lots of school children going to school to excessive pollution. Not what I would have done when on Hattock. We should be encouraging young people to walk to school. There was already a cycle lane in Dryden Road that I was proactive in getting when on this committee. Dryden Road is a very wide road with 2 extra wide pavements, and all you are doing is sending all this unnecessary traffic onto our large housing estates and walk to school routes. Why wasn't this chaos identified before? I can't do anything about my husband's early death, but I want this committee to visit and look at the fallout caused by the closure and the effects to our school children and their families who live on our large housing estate. Look at their future health and well-being. Look at walked route schools, because it's our children and families' health and well-being that Hattock have affected. And I don't want my great-grandchildren and the young people where I live to suffer Gerald's fate. It was a cruel ending. I recall this committee saying they support social justice and the initiative introduced during COVID. I am now asking for social justice for our communities, which have been worse affected and inflicted on us. You as councillors can do your homework for the people and families of our city. Identify the fallout. Look at the debate on Hattock. I know you will get a true account of the situation caused by the thoughtless behaviour of past members. I brought to this council a petition of 836 signatures that I still have a copy, as did St Leonard's with well over 1,500 signatures. My petition was well received by the council leader then, John Hart, in the October 2021 full council, who passed on to the chair of Exeter Hattock that she said was false information and refused to take my petition. Yes, there was false information. I said the local hospital employed 7,000 people, when in fact it's 8,000 people they employ. And I still have a copy of this petition today. We asked this committee to have a review of closed roads through COVID, starting with Dryden Road, to protect our school children and their families, instead of giving luxury clean air to the upper class of our city in Wantford Road and St Leonard's. Yet again, where is the social justice for the ones who need our help the most? You are here to see justice be done for all and not just a privileged few, and ask you do so. Evertree is how is Evertree going to cope with this emergency gas works that's due to start on the 21st of July, cutting off buses and the people attending our many hospitals? What about the displaced traffic again that will be pushed onto our estates? This emergency work that past Hattock members, officers have never catered for or even considered would happen and making decisions on Hattock. May I ask that you will know what will now be done with this petition and how will it be used? And remember, the closures was introduced via a flawed process online. Thank you. That one in there, all right?
Thank you, Owen. Using my prerogative as chair, could I ask you, could you just stay seated? Because I'm going to ask the members if they want.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes,
Sorry.
of course.
I'm using my prerogative as chair to ask whether any members have any points of clarification they'd like from Owen in response to her outline in relation to the petition. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Owen, could you clarify what you're asking for here is a review of the situation and the traffic?
What I want is a review and for you to see for yourselves the impact on our council estates and on our housing estates, because the walk to school routes you've actually killed. Because if I was a mother, I would not be allowing my child to walk to school today along those busy roads. That's all you've done. You've diverted traffic onto walk to school routes, and I just cannot believe it was ever allowed to happen at this council. And I think that the whole process needs reviewing. I was sat at a meeting and I mentioned about Watford House. And they said, oh yeah, they did say that it actually takes 6 minutes to transfer a patient instead of 2. That patient being transferred down to the Cedars would be transferred for a place of safety. So you can imagine what that patient would be like. It would be needing lots of care and less time. But in fact, you've created time. And I think it's cruel the way you worked. I really do. No one had the capacity on that past council committee to ask what difference does 6 minutes. They assumed it was just a straightforward transfer. And I found that very difficult to swallow.
Good afternoon, Alderman Foggin. I understand that the RD&E have been involved in the consultation and they've expressed serious concerns. But when I say consultation, I don't mean with the council, I mean with local residents. And I believe they have serious concerns about the amount of traffic that is cutting through the hospital and using Bobby Moors, and cars are going at some speed.
Give you a for instance of what has happened and what do happen regularly. I had a spine operation back along. I went and saw my consultant, right? Taken up by taxi, phoned the taxi, sorry, the roads around there are too congested, I can't pick you up. Phones my son-in-law who lives in Burnhouse Lane, which is just around the corner from the hospital. It took him 35 minutes to get to me, bumper to bumper traffic. And then when he actually picked me up at the orthopedic end, going down to just to go into Boveymore's things, I couldn't walk, obviously. It actually took us another 35 minutes in bumper to bumper traffic. Is that right? Because you've actually closed one road that other traffic would be able to use that way, different way. It just, where was the common sense in all this? Sorry, I shouldn't be so rude. I apologise for that.
Councillor Ledbetter.
Chairman, I mean, of course, the vote to close this road wasn't unanimous, and in fact, it went against the advice. And they advised it was a one-way, make it one way. So, put to a vote, and it was carried at the time. My question is about procedure. How does this committee reopen this debate and have a look at it again? What is the procedure for doing that?
Would an officer like to respond on what happens to the petition now, how they respond, and how this committee is involved in any response?
In terms of the response to the petition, we have a set format as an authority in terms of the number of signatures received on that, and therefore the level at which it gets responded to. So we'll make sure that now that's been received, that will be recorded, follow that process, and we'll respond.
Within 15 days, Alwyn, you will have a response.
What are the powers of this committee to further discuss this matter following that response?
That would depend on what the response is from the service area.
And members will see that response at the same time as Owen get the copy.
I would expect to be the case, particularly if it's been brought to a member.
Yeah.
Yes.
So are you saying that a member can't put it forward as an item for review in the future? The local member couldn't bring this forward.
The local member will be part of the discussion. There's discussion around that response. So absolutely. The constitution has changed in the last 18 months, but not necessarily in review of that point.
So as the elected local member, would it be in my scope to request a special meeting to discuss the opening of Dryden Road, especially in light of the upcoming roadworks, which will potentially increase the impact on local residents?
Well, first of all, we have to 15 days all of us will see a copy of the response that Owen's getting in regard to this matter. You might decide that the response is satisfactory or not satisfactory or requires further work. At that stage, you as a member can ask for that item to go on the agenda of the next HATOC. Whether there is a position of having a special meeting, because we only meet 4 times a year, is a distinctly separate matter, whether it is of such high importance that it is a one-item agenda or whether it can be carried forward to the autumn meeting.
Yeah, as I'm new at this, I just don't understand. There's so much discontent and it's been going on and on and on. She's got 1,900 signatures. It's so simple and logical. This is not helping the people of that area. Okay, so how long are we going to drag this on? Or we could always spin it and said, how many people have you got would want to keep that in place? So that would give you a comparison. This is so frustrating. It's been going on, and this is causing a lot of issues in that area. And I think we need to be sorting this out today instead of dragging it on and on and on.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm just wondering about the procedure because the petition has been brought to the HATOC committee, not to highways officers in my belief. So I would therefore expect that it would be up to the committee to decide on the response and to whether we want to put this forward for further discussion or to even accept the request to ask for a review to go forward. So I'm surprised that we would have to wait 14 days to find out what the officer response is, because this has come to the committee and we are all committee members.
Councillor Hill.
My question's already been asked.
Andrew.
And if I could ask quickly, just for clarity from officers, if this committee decided it wanted to change things, there have to be a legal traffic order. Couldn't just revoke it, I assume.
For clarity, Councillor Ledbetter, as you've indicated, yes, there is a legal traffic regulation order behind the prohibition of motor vehicles that exist on Dryden Road. To remove and revoke that restriction, we would need to go through the same legal process with a public consultation to agree to that. And obviously that is an expensive and lengthy process. So obviously funding would need to be identified, which is why I don't think the committee is able to make a decision at this point. I think officers need to go away and look at what options are available. Obviously look at data, given the comments that have been made by Owen Fogg in here, and we'll sort of come back with a response to the petition in due course, and obviously outline what possible next steps could take place, depending as to what options might go forward. So it might be worthwhile suggesting that maybe a report be brought forward to the next committee in terms of where we stand and what options could be available to the committee in terms of funding and next steps of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wright. I feel the same way. I'm not sure if this is right, and we're all feeling our way a little bit here as a new committee, but Ms Foggins put forward, one very specific proposal, Open Dryden Road. With the greatest respect, we all know that just doing one thing always causes an impact somewhere else. So then all the pollution would be transferred over to Dryden Road and Wamford Road. And I think if there is going to be a review or a response, and this is a question, although the petition says Open Dryden Road because it presents, I believe it presents a solution, is that right? The petition sort of says that's what we want. But I absolutely have sympathy with the issues and agree there are issues, but they are multiple. There's the most appalling unsafe crossing from the emergency where you come out as a pedestrian or cyclist from the hospital. If you want to cross Bovenmore's Lane up into Church Road or Street, I always forget which one it is. There is rat running, there is speeding, and you will not get a solution through just doing one thing. So I suppose my question is, are the officers obliged to only look at what would happen if we reopen their comment on reopening Dryden Road, or can they, because if we were to discuss it here today, which it seems we're not, that's what I would be promoting, a geographically holistic review of that area. So we're really careful not to do something and just cause another problem somewhere else, because that has happened a lot, it's true. So do we have a clarity if the officers have, in constitutional and quasi-legal terms, do the officers have to go away and only address what the petition addresses? Thank you.
I think constitutional extra point, I'm in the hands of the committee. Nobody, all we have at the moment is a petition which will work through the petition scheme as laid by the council in exactly the same way a petition goes through Exeter City Council, where it goes to council, it can then be referred to scrutiny, or depending on the number of signatures, it goes to another process. Right? So there's a process for the petition. That's one thing. There's the question of the issues raised by the petition and traffic management generally in that geographical area, which might be somewhat, as Councillor Weather also might have an impact just beyond that, the area mentioned by Councillor Foggin. It is at your discretion whether you want the officers to report back at your next meeting on this matter, to pursue this matter or not. That we are entirely in your hands as a committee, and so is Owen, whether you want to. She will get her response in 15 days. But if you believe this is serious enough to be an item on our next agenda, but to have a wider look at the area and review what is going on there, that gives the officers time to gather all the meaningful data and for us to have a meaningful debate. I'm sorry, local government is slow, but that's it, to me, the best route out of it. But I'm in your hands if someone would like to propose that. But first of all, Councillor Nash, normally I don't let you have a second bite, but that's the first meeting.
So I'm very well aware that this road closure was actually implemented very quickly and with very little consultation. I've gone through all the documents and information around this, and it was absolutely appalling. And basically it was put on to the residents, and actually the impact, a benefit, it's very minor, and it's only a few very nice middle class homes that are getting the relief from the pollution. And the pollution is actually being spread to a community where there are more mature people, there's children, vulnerable adults. And I personally think that, as my colleague Councillor Stevens has said, this has been going on now since it closed in 2020 during COVID. So it's been going on for 5 years, and I think the residents have had enough. And I think this needs to be addressed, and I would propose the removal of the TRO and reopening of Dryden Road. Thank you, Chair.
I second that.
So the proposal is to revoke the prohibition of motor vehicles on Dryden Road.
And I assume do you want that vote taken at this time and a report to come to the next meeting? Is that? Yes.
Yeah, we can report back to the next meeting, Chair.
Right. Oh, we now got another row. I've got two other hands up first. I'll come. Yeah. So we have a proposal. We have a seconder. Yes, for that one. Yes. All right. Councillor Wright first, then Councillor Weatherall.
I would like to propose to amend that proposal, because I don't think we were proposing please investigate overturning the traffic order.
That's fair.
What has been requested, from my understanding, and what as a committee we were asking for, was a review, an impact review, for want of a better term. We're not, this seems to have now got completed into, as a committee, are we proposing open up Dryden Road and tell us what might happen if you do? I think a wider report was what was being asked for, an actual up-to-date impact assessment of the closure of Dryden Road. I think if we say we want you to investigate opening it, bring forward a report about opening it at this stage, we're preempting actually getting information and having a good debate about it. So my proposal would be that officers undertake an impact review. Sorry, an amendment, and report back to the next meeting.
Right.
Thank you, Chair.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Thank you, Councillor Wood is amended. Right. We're now discussing or talking about the amendment. Unless the proposer of the motion is happy to accept the amendment, we'll discuss the amendment and then have a vote on that. And if that then becomes the substantive motion if agreed. All right. Councillor Wetham. We only deal with one amendment at a time. That's complex enough. Vice Chair.
I was just going to point out that no decision's been made by the committee just now. We've not voted on anything, so we're just in a debate phase.
So we're now discussing the amendment. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I think that the amendment should not be implemented because we know what the vote was like before the closure was put into place. So we've got the data from way back. I think we should do the opposite and open the road and then have a look at what the issues are with the road open, as opposed to assess what it is like now with the road closed, because we've had 5 years of people complaining about this, and I think it's nonsensical to have another delay so that we can discuss this further.
A clear. Sorry, Councillor.
What we've not had today is an alternative view of the situation. I get lots of correspondence and support of the measures, and I'm sorry for the people that are here today that have a negative experience of it. It's not the only view in the city. I also work at the Royal Devon and Exeter Hospital, and I have a lived experience of some of the issues that I think it's Alwyn, is it, has come, and I thank her for that, because it's not easy to talk in public about personal experiences when they're so close to your heart. But I do work in that area, have a strong understanding, both as a member of the public and as a user of psychiatric and A&E services in that area. So I think what we've heard is part of the story. I think we'd all agree that we value public opinion, and I don't think we're at a point today where we're to make a decision about whether we open or close it. What we are at a point today is to take the petition, consider some of the good points that were made, look for the whole picture, and then come back to the committee. And that is our duty as a traffic orders committee. And so I would propose that that is what is done.
We have Councillor Wetton, unless you're adding something to it, I would like to proceed to the vote so we get some clarity if we can. What would you, is it something new?
I think there's a little bit of conflation here between, so Councillor Wright talked about an impact assessment, so that's looking at the negative impacts basically, or positive. But I think, building on what Councillor Ketchin said, I think if we need to have something that looks at that and at positive possible solutions, and that should come to the next committee with some ideas that we can then discuss. So I think it's just for us all to be clear if we're talking, because an impact assessment is a very specific and different thing to looking at possible solutions. So I hope that anything that officers bring, if we do vote and agree on bringing a discussion to the next committee, it would include solutions as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Reid. Councillor Reid to start with then.
Yeah, it sounds like the amendment is more or less asking for what Owen was asking for, a review of the impact of what's happened since we've done it. So it seems like a sensible first step. Like if that does confirm, as was said, that there's a big issue which needs fixing, the next step would be looking at what the potential solutions are. But I think it's a sensible first step if I've understood what the petition was calling for as well.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you. I think it is important. What we are talking about here is something that's been in place for a long time. The negative impacts that we've heard are still ongoing. So I think we do need to move as quickly as we can. But as the chair has said, it is local government. It doesn't move quickly. And one of the reasons it doesn't move quickly
is because of the fact that it's public money and the impact can be so widespread. So that is why we move slowly, and it's unfortunate, but we do need to look at this properly. Otherwise, we stand the risk of just a knee-jerk reaction, if you like, black or white. So I think it's important that we do know the impact of what we have done, what the committee, not ourselves, because I think most of us are new. So it's what the committee, the impact of what the committee has done. We need to be aware of that. And then we need to look at how best to come up with a solution for that particular setting. So let's have a look at the impact that's happened. And then once we are informed on that impact, we then take whatever actions are appropriate to make the best solution there. It may not be a good solution, but there is a best solution to reach for.
Thank you. I'd like now to propose that we move to the vote on the amendment. And just for clarity, I'll ask the committee clerk if she could give us the wording again of the amendment, because we have.
The wording I have was the proposal that there be an impact review and an officer report back to the next meeting. That was the wording of the amendment.
Councillor Wright, is that correct? Yes? All right. We now please have a show of hands in favour of the amendment. 5 in favour of the amendment. 1, 2, oh, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoops. Oops. No. Or 6.5 if we count the microphone. Right. Those 6. Those opposed to the amendment? 5. The amendment is now the substantive motion, and for procedure purposes, we now have to vote. I think we've had sufficient debate on the issue. That now becomes the motion on which we now vote. So we have a second vote, so, which of course the motion could be voted down, but let's cross our bridges as we get to them. So all those in favour of the motion, which was the amendment as read, all those please show, please, in favour of the new motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 6, 7. Opposed to the motion. Voting against. 3 abstentions and 1 abstention. All right. Thank you, Owen.
Yeah, thank you. Can you please assure me that on the 21st that you will actually be keeping an eye on our area? Because I know what's going to happen again. All the roads in Wantford will be chock-a-block and nothing will move. So if you've got an emergency going to the RDNA, tough. So don't have a heart attack in the month of starting on the 21st, because it's so bad. And I'm appalled to think that this council hasn't even picked that up.
Thank you.
Marianne Holden here.
Just to confirm, it's 5 minutes when you're ready.
It's going to be quicker because Olwen's said most of it, and I'm just here to support previous proposals. So I don't know how much you want me to say, but yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Clarity of everybody. This is not a separate petition.
No.
You are speaking in support of the first petition.
Yeah.
I don't need any more.
Yep.
So
We don't actually.
the only thing that
Yeah.
I want to say, if that's okay, so it'll be very quick.
Yeah.
To add to what's already been said is that we've completed a new petition and an online one, and in total these are new, not the previous petition, of 1,148 signatures in 3 weeks.
Clarification, you might not know this. Are these distinctly 1,148 different people that signed?
That I can't say until we look at the names, but this is
Because-
these are current concerns.
Because
of
if
people.
Devon County Council's petition system is similar to Exeter, that the numbers generate a different
I do
style of
understand
response.
that. Yeah, I do understand that, but just to say that currently people are still very much
And that-
concerned.
as you're
about
aware,
the-
we've accepted the first petition. It's gone through our process for a response within 15 days, and
Yeah.
you now know that
Yeah.
the committee have asked for a report
Okay.
at its next meeting to take this matter further.
Yeah. So just, can I ask?
Yes.
I'm here. When the committee discussed this, because I've obviously not been to a HATOC meeting before, so when the committee discussed it again, where do all our comments and information, how does that get to you?
Officers have a copy of the petition. You'll be able to contact any and all of the elected members here this afternoon for them to speak. And is there a public speaking point? Questions?
Not at HATOC, no.
Not at
but
HATOC,
also
no.
via their local.
No. So you need to contact through the officers or submit to members of the committee any representations you've got in regard to the report. And it's best done once you receive the report, so you're aware of what the officers are saying and recommending, so that you're actually talking to the report.
So-
And of course, you can attend as a member of the public and watch online.
If
Yes.
it relates to a traffic regulation order, then they can speak.
If it is a traffic regulation order that we are changing or amending or revoking, you then are able to speak.
Okay, the only other difference to Olwyn's is that she was looking for a review. I was actually looking to, my proposal was looking to open it. So that's just,
I would assume when the officers make the report, there might be a number of options for members to consider. That's a normal procedure. And it's up to the members then to decide whether they support any of those or come up with further options to be considered.
a nice speech, but see, I won't go through it all again because we've decided to review it, so that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
And move on to item 7. Local waiting restrictions programme.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Yep, so obviously, as existing members or historic members will be aware, and for new members' benefit, we run a regular programme to review waiting restrictions across all districts in the county. We sort of seek comments and requests for minor quick win changes to waiting restrictions. So this isn't big residence parking schemes, this is minor changes. So limited waiting that might not be appropriate anymore because shops have changed, yellow lines that may or may not be needed, and things like that. Obviously, we ask the members to liaise with your neighbourhood highways officers to consider the requests. They will then put them on the list, which we then obviously batch up and process en masse once a year generally. Obviously, because of the elections, the discussions for this would normally take place through delegated powers that we mentioned during the training earlier. Obviously, because of the elections, we brought it to this committee to agree to seek your views on advertising the proposals as detailed in the report. In future years, we would obviously liaise with that through delegated powers via email. The intention would be, obviously, following this meeting, we'll obviously finalise the proposals, take them forward to our legal team for formally advertising the proposals. That's a 3-week statutory consultation process where we'll write to local properties in the immediate vicinity of these. We'll put notices up on site. We'll advertise it on our website in the local press and seek comments. We will then obviously collate those comments and bring them back to a later meeting of this committee for a final decision. And that final decision could be to proceed as advertised, could be to not proceed, or could be to make some modifications. Obviously, as officers will make those recommendations, but as members, you can obviously decide to go with those recommendations or make changes necessary. Obviously, as I said, so the proposals here, most of them were agreed with obviously councillors that I recognise aren't currently in post. But if you're happy, Chair, proposing to go through the sites in the appendix, member by member, and just see if the local member has any particular comments regarding those sites, and then we can do a vote at the end as to whether we proceed as discussed.
Just from particularly new members' interest, what is the timescale from now? And if these are whatever is agreed today, how long before the process of consultation takes place, and how long before it comes back to this committee for further consideration?
So the timescales for this obviously will be depending on the decisions from today's committee. We'll obviously be finalising the drafting of the proposals to advertise within the next month or two. And then obviously we'd then collate those responses and bring them back to committee. I think it's probably, with the timescales of this committee, it's probably tight for the autumn, so it's probably like to be the first one in 2026. And then obviously once we've had the decision at that committee, we'll then look to implement. So it'll be sort of like probably spring, early summer of next year for implementation.
The actual implementation of many of these is a year ahead.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously we're talking about it. Obviously, if there are new requests, as I said at the moment, I would obviously any member should discuss them with your neighbourhood highways officers. They'll put them on the list. That list will generally close around October, November time this year, and then we'll start work on the next tranche for delivery late next year, early 2027. Okay, so yeah, so starting with on the list in the appendix. So this is the number of sites for Councillor Ledbetter. Obviously, we've already had correspondence with Councillor Ledbetter, and the proposal is to defer the decision on 4 Street Topsham. There's further discussion we had on that one, and defer that decision to make a final determination with yourself, Chair, and Councillor Ledbetter on that one. And it's also highlighted there was a site that was omitted in the Strand, and again, the proposers we'd add that site. Again, defer that decision on that with yourself, Chair, and with Councillor Ledbetter. But beyond that, obviously, we've got St Bernard's Close, Denver Close, Globefield, and Monmouth Street. I don't know if Councillor Ledbetter has any comments on those.
I think only just to confirm that conversation that yes, we need a bit more work on 4th Street, but we'd like to keep within the timescale, 2 months. And yeah, one place has been omitted, was at the museum in Topsham, which we were going to add on. So with those things, I'm happy to approve what you put down for Topsham. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on next, we've got Councillor Ketchin with Bull Meadow Road, Collerton Mews, Curie Mews, and Riley Road, Victoria Park Road, and Vine Close.
I'm very happy for them to go to public consultation. I'm very happy with the changes.
Okay. Moving on to Councillor Hill. Obviously, we've already been mentioned Exhibition Road, and again, Chair, I prefer sort of recommend that we defer that discussion between yourself, Councillor Hill, and take that offline and explore options for that one. And then obviously propose for Langerton Lane, Merlin Crescent, and yeah, Langerton Lane, Merlin Crescent.
Mr. Wood. Thank you. I'm a city councillor and Pinhouse is my ward, and I've been a councillor for 9 years now, and so some familiarity with that particular area. It is an issue, and we are talking about public consultation, so getting information in, which will include options, I'm sure. And I think Councillor Hill has been talking about perhaps not reaching the businesses properly, not consulting. So I think that as part of the process, so can I just check with the officer, please? You mentioned that when it goes out to consultation, properties are contacted. Does that include businesses?
Yes, it will include all addresses within the vicinity of the proposals, yes, whether that be residential or business.
So on that basis, I'm kind of hoping that that would meet with or start to address Councillor Hill's reservations on it, the feedback we get from the businesses and the residents. The reason I kind of don't want to see it pushed down the hill further, it's been a long time arriving, and there are some significant issues there. There's one of our residents who's blind, who literally lorry doors open, and when they open, they are at head height, and she's walked into an open lorry door, and those lorries are just parked, racked up across that road, not appropriately using the highway. So there are some safety issues there, and it's a very long-standing, very slow process. So with Councillor Hill's agreement, it would be useful, I think, for it to go out to consultation. That's not making it happen. That's asking people what do they think of it. So that's my suggestion, proposal.
I can just add to clarify for Councillor Wood's benefit. The intention is not that we don't advertise this. Obviously, the intention is that we would sort of delay the advertising of the whole package slightly whilst we've had further discussions on this site. Obviously, there's further discussion about whether we proceed with what's been drafted in the proposal, and the recommendation I'm proposing is that we reconsider the proposals. It may require redesigning, but that decision be deferred to Councillor Hill and the chair of the committee to decide whether, if anything, is taken forward for advertising. I note the comments, and obviously I'm aware of those concerns, and I think Councillor Hill is as well, and we'll certainly discuss them as part of the deferment discussion. But the intention is that if we do agree something, it would still be advertised as part of this tranche of proposals. So moving on, we've got Councillor Reed's site in Vaughan Road.
Yeah, we've had correspondence on this. Very happy for it to be advertised. Thanks.
Okay, moving on to yourself then, Chair. We've got a site in Cowley Bridge Road and Stoke Valley Road. I will have to have a look at that and come back to you on that, Chair. Moving on, we've got Councillor Neil Stevens. So Barley Farm Road, Bohay Lane, Chudley Road, Fairfield, Grace Road West, Marsh Green Road North, twice, Madison Close, Matford Park Road, Regent Street and Rice's Mews.
Yeah, I visited quite a lot of these sites, especially down in Grace Road and some where the garages are. Even when I met the owner of the garage, pulling out myself was so much obstruction. So a lot of these areas, I've done site visits. I've met with the local people who work there, the factories and all the places down there. So all these, with the help of Roger, you know, we've come up with an agreement that these is all safety issues really. And, you know, that's what I could say on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to Councillor Thomas Richardson, we've got Prospect Park, St John's Road, St Matthew's Close.
Yep, thank you very much. All very minor changes, so happy to move to the next step.
Okay, Councillor Tony Stevens, Burrata Drive, Cleveland Street, Exwick Lane, twice, Simi Close and Winchester Avenue.
Yes, I'm happy with that. A lot of them are due to the schools. So.
I think that's everybody happy, Chair. So with the exceptions of the deferment for Exhibition Road, 4th Street and the additional for the Strand, the recommendation is that we ask the committee to approve the advertising of those proposals.
Clean. Sorry. Apologies for just having some technical problems here. Apologies, everyone. Technology as always. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Knight, and I'm here this afternoon to present to you the Newtown Community Project. It's a unique active travel community project within the Exeter and Cranbrook Sport England local delivery programme. The scheme seeks to increase mobility through improving active lifestyles and reducing inactivity within the community
and as a result, therefore, increasing everyday movement. Working towards the strategic objective of 50% journeys in Exeter by active modes. Exeter City Council are the programme sponsor, and Devon County Council are the delivery authority for today's presentation. It really has been a true partnership between the two authorities over the 5 years that the scheme has developed. The project's long history, it's been running since 2021, and we've had area learning, stakeholder engagement and design work taking place to date to get us to where we are. Most recently, the project has consulted on the proposals across the end of 2024 and into the start of 2025. And I'm here today to present the results of that and ask for your approval to progress the scheme through to implementation. For a little bit of project context, for those people that don't know where Newtown is, it's an area of Exeter near to the city centre. It's bounded by Heathertree Road to the south, Western Way and Blackboy Road to the north, and then Poleslow Road to the east. Has a population of over 10,000 and has been identified as one of the Exeter and Cranbrook local delivery programme target areas due to its pockets of inactivity within overall high levels of activity. The main scheme spine is shown on the plan there is the yellow area, and it's Clifton Road along to Belmont Park and then up to Clifton Hill, starting at the Triangle car park. The project vision was developed in 2021 following the informal engagement, and it's the only scheme in Exeter to have undergone a safety inclusivity assessment. The sections, there's 6 project elements to the scheme as a whole. They were included within the report. I'll just give you a brief overview of each individual run rather than going through full nitty-gritty detail. So section 1 is the spur of Russell Street from the Triangle Park car park through to Heathertree Road. The proposal there is to put a prohibition of motor vehicles on that section of road to improve walking and cycling access and to create a small pocket park community area in that section of road. This delivers recommendations A and B of the report, and it does have a reduction of 4 short stay parking spaces. Section 2 is the Triangle car park itself. I won't refer to the inner side of section 2 too much because that is the jurisdiction of Exeter City Council, but obviously the proposals also go around the outside, which is Russell Street, and include the junction of Clifton Road and Russell Street. So those proposals are to tighten some of the carriageways, increase the priority of pedestrians crossing through to the alleyway past the Jury's Inn, the Arnado Hotel. And that proposal delivers recommendations A and B. It's worthwhile noting that there is a reduction of 25 spaces in the car park itself, but there is the provision of additional spaces around the perimeter of the car park. So it is a change overall. Section 3 of the proposals is the main centre of Clifton Road, Clifton Street. This seeks to increase the community space right in the heart of the Newtown area, making it easier for people to use and move forward up and down. Primary delivery point of this one is to improve the safety of pedestrians going north and south past the park spaces that are currently echelon outside the shop. It also seeks to improve the crossing in and out of the shop by providing a designated crossing point right outside the shop front. This proposal delivers recommendations A and E, and possibly due to a subject alteration, it will be recommendation F as well. There is a reduction in spaces at this location, parking spaces, but they are offset in the wider community. Section 4 is the junction of Belmont Road, with Clifton Road. And the purpose of this proposal is to increase the priority of pedestrians and people moving in and out of the park, and to increase the access to that park by creating a raised table. This proposal delivers recommendations A and D, and through its implementation will actually provide an increase of residents' parking spaces in the local vicinity. Section 5 is the Clifton Hill section, and this is the proposal to introduce a contraflow cycling, one-way with cycling. It delivers recommendations A and C, and there is no net loss of parking space capacity. There is an alteration to the layout, but the number of spaces remains the same. And then section 6 is the final link of the scheme, which links through Western Way. This part of the scheme has been scaled back following public consultation and public responses. It is now going to be the improvement of direction in terms of signage and lining to make sure that people are clearer with where they're going. But the option or the suggestions that were proposed via the consultation took the scheme, that piece of the scheme, to too broad outside of the rest of the scheme, remembering that the main spine of the proposal is along Clifton Road itself. And that scheme delivers recommendation A. So the most recently there have been 2 public consultations. The first consultation was delivered by Exeter City Council. It was a 10-week consultation that ran from the 2nd of December 2024 to the 7th of February 2025. There were 4 in-person drop-in sessions held at St Matt's Hall at various times of the day and week, make it as accessible as possible. We had 58% supportive comments and 21% negative comments.
Sorry, can I interfere there? You had 58% for or whatever. How many actual people turned up?
I think it was 57 individual responses.
How many people live in that area?
What I will say is that overall, the level of engagement throughout the whole scheme, that is typical with what has come from this community.
But my problem there is 58 people isn't the population of Newtown. It's not giving you a general sort of feeling about what you're doing.
So that was the first phase of the consultation, okay, which asked about the scheme as a whole. Then the second phase of the consultation went live, which was the TRO consultation. That ran from the 3rd of April until the 28th of April. And those 3 TROs received 212 representations overall, so a much broader spectrum.
Yeah, I understand your reputation. How many people actually live there? Is it 1,000, 2,000, 3,000?
The area of Newtown and St David's is over 10,000.
Could I point out to members, you ask your questions through the chair. It's not an open debate. Just
My
to join in.
apologies to you.
No disrespect to you, but that's the way we operate. Right?
Okay, I am learning, so please accept my apology.
So the consultation, so the consultations, 212 representations received, 75 responses to the prohibition of motor vehicles on Russell Street. 85% of those were supportive. 84 responses to the contraflow cycling, and then 53 responses to the whole waiting and parking order itself. It needs to be stated that these consultations were backed up by engagement with local businesses, schools and other organisations, and these were broadly supportive of the scheme being progressed. There is further work to do with certain groups of the inclusive Exeter, for example, on design refinement to make sure that all aspects are included, and that will be going forward over the coming weeks. Chair.
Chair, would you, can I ask what consultation you've had with the RNIB and guide dogs to date in relation to this project? you.
So through the development of the consultation proposal and in line with Exeter City Council's charter, we identified the seldom heard groups and we reached out to them specifically. We did get responses back and those responses have been fed in to the design process. We now need to start the next phase of that process, which is discussing finer refinements with those individuals. And I've reached out to one individual, one representative, I won't use their names, I'm not sure if I do have the permission to do so, to start those conversations, and those conversations are positive.
I point out to members it's helpful if we let the officer complete his report, then go through the questions that you've got, so that we aren't constantly disrupting the flow of the points the officer wants to make. As we said, officers make short reports at county. It's not an Exeter City Planning Committee.
So those are the most recent consultations today, and they've led us on to some project alterations have been going on throughout the entire development phase. One example is the introduction of the walking route through the Triangle car park. That wasn't part of the initial proposals, but that has now become a designated route through. Another example is it was picked up in the consultation that Gordon Road, the inclusion of a dropped curb, very simple little bit, would be helpful to pedestrians and wheelers in that area. So that has been included. Another element that has come through is consultation with the local shop. What I need to stress is the current proposal for Clifton Road, the scheme does work, and this is a viable, deliverable scheme. However, to make it easier for the shop to receive their deliveries, they've asked us to include the provision of a loading bay. It would be a dual use bay, so it would be loading by day, residents parking overnight. But we have also taken the opportunity to revise the extensive double yellow lines and are able to make adjustments to the parking layout. So there again is no net loss of parking provision in that location for the residents. That is recommendation F, and I'll move on to those recommendations now. So as a whole, today we're here to ask for your approval to take forward the scheme to its next stage, which would be implementation and construction, with the intention of being able to construct the scheme late 2025, early 2026. Would the committee like me to run through the recommendations, or are we happy that they're listed as per the report?
Point of clarification, you talk about the starting of the scheme. What's the actual length of completion for all the components?
In terms of construction?
Construction, yes. In other words, you're saying sometime will start potentially in 2025, 26. How long before this whole scheme will be completed?
The intention is to have it finished by the end of the financial year. So March 2026.
Thank you.
That's in line with the funding portfolio that we have available to us.
Open it up to members who wish to ask questions. Last. Oh, sorry. We have some public speakers. Let the public have their say. So call forward, please. Councillor Lucy Haig, who's allowed 5 minutes. Is the microphone on? Come.
That's better. Thank you, Chair. Chair, as a councillor for Hevertree Ward, I wanted to highlight that Hevertree Road is a vital route for Hevertree residents, accessing the city centre, bus station and St Sidwell's Point. The aim of this project is to make it easier and safer for people walking, wheeling and cycling. So let's look at the plans for Russell Street and the Hevertree Road junction. On approach from the car park, cyclists and pedestrians are segregated, until they reach the Pelican crossing on Herefordshire Road to Denmark Road. If you are walking from Herefordshire towards the city centre or vice versa along Herefordshire Road, can officers explain what mechanism is in place to prevent collisions when the Pelican crossing lights turn green? Whether you are blind, partially sighted, or wearing headphones, or simply distracted, how do you know you are entering a conflict zone? How will you know what you are walking into? Who gives way? Your 2021 consultation highlighted that residents wanted to see walking routes safer and usable for all. But these plans show inconsistency in the use of segregation and shared space, something the RNIB strongly opposes when designing for our blind residents. Consistency of design is essential for safe and independent travel, whether to work or leisure, and helps prevent self-exclusion because the journey is fraught with anticipated danger. The L-shaped tactile paving by the Pelican crossing provides some guidance for the blind and visually impaired, but when shared with others, it offers little, especially if pedestrians or cyclists are waiting on top of it. Potentially, if a pedestrian or cyclist sees a green light or an audible alert and is focused on crossing Herefordshire Road, they may enter the shared space at pace, as highlighted in your equality impact assessment. Which warns those who are visually impaired can find shared use difficult to navigate, particularly where cyclists' flow is high. It is recommended that ongoing monitoring of shared sections is undertaken to manage potential conflict. For blind residents, there is no potential, it is real. Members hold the legal obligation under the public sector equality duty to consider this. Therefore, it is clear opportunity to create a segregated crossing and continue the segregation along Denmark Road, separating cyclists from both people and vehicles. Designing this now may be more cost effective than retrofitting later when the updated new LTN 120 guidance and Active Travel England regulations come into force following the bus bill's implementation. A registered blind resident has been invited to a design review, which is encouraging. However, I strongly recommend that the RNIB, who were not invited to this consultation, despite being a Devon County Council stakeholder, be formally invited along with Guide Dogs for the Blind to evaluate and co-produce these final design plans. Otherwise, Devon County Council risks ignoring its own Director of Climate Change, Environment and Transport's guidance on the approach to inclusive design, discussed by this committee on the 15th of October 2024. The Council endeavours to meet the needs of all people, ensuring that walking and cycling infrastructure is accessible for individuals with protected characteristics and follow appropriate guidance documents during the design process. Because if we design for residents with disabilities, every other resident benefits. As the Highway Code rightly indicates, it's with its hierarchy of road users. Chair and HATOP members, please support the safety of all residents, especially those with disabilities, when considering highways and active travel projects. And if you haven't yet, I urge you to take part in the sighted guide training. It's a powerful way to understand the lived experience of the 4,000 plus blind and visually impaired people living in Exeter. I found it humbling, and I hope you will too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for just keeping. Thank you for keeping within the 5 minutes. Sadly, as you're not an elected member, you only get 3 minutes.
You'd have to pay me to be an elected member. So I'd like to speak in support of the Exeter Newtown Community Project and traffic regulation orders that you're going to be voting on today. It's a really interesting presentation by the officers. Also, got to say welcome to the new councillors. So these are relatively straightforward minor measures which will improve the Newtown area, not only for residents but for Exeter citizens as a whole. Navigating the Triangle car park as a cyclist will become much more straightforward, and the creation of a coherent and safe route along this obvious desire line will encourage more people to choose active travel. And as we know, increased levels of active travel mean lower pollution, less congestion, better health outcomes, and therefore less pressure on the public purse, better road safety, less road damage and potholes. And as a regular cyclist, I urge you to be tough, not only on potholes, but on the cause of the potholes, which is heavy vehicles. Traffic congestion costs the UK £8 billion a year. Physical inactivity costs the UK 7.4 billion a year. Car pollution, 6 billion a year. Road damage, 14 billion a year. And promoting active travel is a cheap way to mitigate these huge and damaging costs, which are an invisible hit to all taxpayers' pockets. I'd also like to urge all councillors to approve the contraflow bike lane on Clifton Hill. This creates a safe route between the residential neighbourhoods of Hevertree and Newtown and onwards into the city centre. This is sorely lacking at the moment. We're currently telling kids that if they want to cycle into Exeter from this part of Hevertree, their choices are right along Poleslow Road, down Blackboy Road and through the Sidwell Street roundabout, or left along Poleslow Road. I wouldn't be happy with my kids cycling this route, and I urge councillors to use these improvements as a starting point for involving the needs and wishes of young people in their decisions, in your decisions. The public consultation on these traffic orders showed us that people want to be able to cycle, walk and wheel, and for our shared spaces to be made more accessible. But surveys show that the number one reason people have put off cycling as a means of getting around is danger, both real and perceived. And the evidence from countless other cities is that one thing that makes a difference in terms of boosting active travel numbers, and that's building safe, protected infrastructure. Exeter is a progressive city with a dynamic, ambitious population. We look out for each other, and we should be setting an example to other cities. By taking measures such as these, which encourage greener, healthier, more community-centred living, you councillors have the ability to make positive, progressive changes to the lives of all Exeter citizens, which I hope is the reason you got into politics in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. And now from the Exeter Cycling Campaign, James Diamond. Again, 3 minutes when you're ready.
That's on, is it? Yeah. I'd like to start actually by just endorsing Lucy Hayes' last comment that when you design for people with disability, you include everyone. And that's very much the spirit of the Exeter Cycling Campaign. And I'm speaking to you as the chair of the Exeter Cycling Campaign. These proposals are really exciting. You might not have got that so far, but we think they are. In 2021, in the first community engagement, Newtown residents made a clear ask. They wanted safer cycling and walking routes, they wanted improved public space, and they wanted accessible and inclusive community spaces. The 2024 community consultation found support for all of the specific elements in front of you today. And in 2025, those voices have remained clear, with over 80% support for all of the TROs that you are considering today. We understand the proposals are supported by all of the Exeter City Council ward members, and they've been endorsed by the Exeter City Council Executive Committee as well. So why are these changes needed? Car ownership in Newtown is low. According to the 2021 census, over 50% of households in Sandford Walk, Parr Street and Clifton Road have no access to a private car or van. I don't believe the people in this room are very representative of that. I suspect car ownership amongst us is much higher, but car ownership in Newtown is very low. Those residents rely on travel by foot, bike, mobility scooters and public transport. You will know that some of that community live with high levels of disability, isolation, economic hardship, and related to all of that, very few travel options. Exeter City Council has just approved the development on the former Clifton Hill Sports Centre. That development will be specifically designed for older people and specifically designed to have very low car ownership. These new residents will directly benefit from the independence to be able to safely and easily walk and wheel to the shops, hospital and health centre. 3 primary schools lie within a 15-minute walk or bike ride of these proposals. Newtown Primary School lies at its very heart. Nationally, Sustrans have found that over 50% of children wish to cycle or scoot more. What stops them? It's the lack of safety and space. These changes will enable safer travel for children to schools, parks and shops. Right now, the streets are not as safe as they could be. The community have told you that, and your data, Devon County Council data, shows that. In the period prior to 2023, these very streets saw 10 road collisions, 2 of which involved children. And those road collisions have cost tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds in public money, as well as the harm, of course, it's done to those individuals. At the recent Devon County Council election, all parties supported safer and inclusive travel. Labour argued for networks of walking and cycling, health equity and school safety. Councillor Richardson, who I can't quite see from here, told people he would act on rat running, speeding and road safety. And Councillor Hill said he would support road solutions that work for everyone. Well, these have over 80% support. These changes impose little or no cost on car drivers, but will help unlock freedom and safety for those in Newtown who have the fewest travel options: children, older people and disabled people. Please support making safe, easy and cheap travel an option for more people in Newtown and Exeter. Please listen to the community and support making Newtown an even better place to live. Thank you. Thank you.
We now open the matter up for general debate between members of the committee.
I actually had a couple of questions for Peter first. Is that okay?
Okay.
I had a couple of questions for Peter.
Yes, you can ask questions
till the end. So
no, you can. Sorry, you can either debate the issue under consideration of items A to G, which are required, or you can pose questions and the officer will respond. And I will ask the officer whether, depending upon the number of questions, whether he responds all at one go or wants to interject a particular time. So depends on the number of questions that we think.
Okay. Sort of 2 general questions. I think I read that you did letter drops before the consultation, which was great to see, people getting information direct to their door. I think you said over 1,800, and you mentioned there's 10,000 residents in the area. So I don't know if it's like 2 or 3 residents per house, maybe it's roughly half the area. So firstly, which areas did you letter drop to and how did you decide that? And secondly, just to confirm, was that done before that first consultation by EC's Exeter City Council? And then the second question was about Western Way being dropped. And was that just because the feedback was giving contradictory suggestions which couldn't be reconciled, or because the suggestions were just sort of too substantial to be incorporated at this stage?
Okay, if you'd like me to answer those 2. The easiest thing to refer you to is the proposal plan there. Effectively, what is in the dotted red line were the properties that were written to, including all businesses and residential properties. So that will be the difference between the 1,800 versus the 10,000 population. It's also worthwhile stating that the 10,000 is taken from national numbers, and it's St David's and Newtown. I'll answer that question. And it was done at the start of the Exeter City Council consultation. That one. The alterations to Western Way were because the suggestions that came back were too big and too broad for the funding portfolio that is available to this project. As I mentioned, the spine was along Clifton Road. What we tried to do with this scheme, because it's a community scheme, was to, rather than have edge red lines to a scheme, we tried to blend it as much as we could into the existing network. That's why, for example, the Russell Street section also includes a tiny bit of work on Denmark Road itself. It's a very small bit of work. So the original proposals were to do more work on Western Way, but really what we need to do is gather all of those responses, collate all of those responses and hold them on file so that future schemes in that area that can come through development and other routes can then pick up that initial work and say, okay, what do we now do with the Western Way section? But we're not dropping it completely, still doing vegetation clearance, some moving of some lining to make it safer and more usable for everybody involved.
Thanks. Sorry, I did have one more. Is that okay? Following on from Councillor Hayes' comment about involving the blind or the RNIB, the final discussion of the plans. We're voting on final, are we voting on final detailed design plans now, or is there scope for further engagement and involvement in like a final refining, or is it this is the final thing, no scope for any further involvement with, for instance, the blind?
So in response to Councillor Hay, I'm not unsure why RNIP weren't included. I will check the records as to find out why that wasn't the case, and I will try to resolve that. Certainly they will be included going forward in any review meetings. You are voting on the final design detail, but there could be slight alterations to get us through to construction. I'm not expecting them to be significant. You know, we're talking the same elements, but you're not voting on the difference between a 50mm curb height that would be appropriate for a tapping stick versus a 20mm curb height that would be appropriate for a cycle. So they are the design proposals. There won't be any significant changes outside of what you're voting on today.
Councillor Stevens is next, and I'll say, I hope.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll say.
On a point of order, Chair, shouldn't we hear from the local member?
More than willing to hear from the local member if Councillor Stevens is happy to.
Yeah, apologies, Councillor Stevens. I just wanted to extend my thanks to the previous councillors and the ward councillors who've done tremendous work on this project. And I think it's a real testament of good collaboration between Exeter City Council and Devon County Council. So I'd congratulate all those involved and the officers for providing such a fantastic outline of this project. I'd also just like to thank the speakers we've had today, starting with Councillor Haigh. Thank you very much for those comments. You know, I really hope that going forward, these refinements we can discuss those with the officers. I'd always, you know, open my hand out to Councillor Haigh to say, you know, always you can come to me and we can work through any sort of adjustments. And of course to Ed and James, I don't want to repeat what you've said, but thank you so much for those words, because that's exactly why we're all here. That's exactly why I'm a councillor here today. And, you know, thank you very much for providing the words of support. Apologies if I'm a bit frazzled. I've just come from my graduation at the University of Exeter. Yes, you know, even though I've only been the local member since the May election, I have been watching this project very closely, and I do approve of the entirety of this project, all A to G recommendations. I've spoken to the officers, we've had several conversations, and of course, you know, during the campaign, this was definitely something that was completely on my radar and agenda. So with that, I would encourage all members today to approve all the proposed recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I was getting confused with your city council colleague. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, it's this will cross over a bit, so you might shut me down, Chair, and I don't blame you. It's the consultation. A small percentage of people is one of my bugbearers. The three people, yeah, really good presentation. James, we need to speak afterwards. You might shut me down. You can find £500,000 to build this, which is really nice, but we can't find £500,000 to clear the weeds off the roads. They've had 3 cyclists come off in Elpington Road within the last 2 weeks because of the way it's been done. So we've got to get a right balance here. We're looking at the presentation for people walking down blind or disabled. These weeds are like big as bushes, but I'll shut you down now.
Yes, I was just going to say, you know, we're getting lost in the weeds a bit there, I think, on that one.
Sorry, point of
clarification.
Yeah, yes. Just on the money side, just to reassure Councillor Stevens that this is a grant from Sport England, and so this money is specifically for this project. But I, of course, you know, hear exactly what you're saying about the other issues, and you know that's something for us to focus on.
Councillor Wright next, and Councillor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the officers and everyone that's taken part in this substantial piece of work, and I am minded to approve when we get to that point. This seems slightly a bit of a curveball, but a couple of times in this committee before, I've brought up the issue of the bubble paving in Western Way being right by the roundabout. So if you're blind and you go along and you feel the bubble paving, you are then encouraged to cross 2 lanes of traffic just on Western Way roundabout, which you can imagine is horrendous. And then further up on the junction where there's traffic lights on the corner of Western Way and Summerland Street, there's similar bubble pavement, again, encouraging people with little or no sight to actually cross where there's no pedestrian crossing. So I brought this up twice before and both times have been told, don't worry, because this is going to be looked at as part of this project. Now, with what you're saying about the Western Way part of it, not quite all going ahead. I'm sorry, this is a curveball, but it's really important that that doesn't get dropped. Every time I go along there, I'm just, there are people that are crossing with babies in pushchairs and everything because it looks as if it's still, it is crossing because of the bubble pavement. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit left field, but I just don't want that to get lost again. So I'm wondering, how can I bring that up again now it's no longer part of this project?
So I won't go into all the detail because it's not appropriate here, but conversations are going forward with development management to make sure that the investigation work that's been done as the precursor part of this project and listening to the consultation responses is passed across to any potential developments in that area for possible contributions.
Am I allowed a supplementary, Chair?
Of course, Councillor.
Thank you. I'm not sure, sorry, Peter, I'm not sure you're quite getting me. This is a health and safety issue, big time. And I do walk down that way. I don't cycle yet. I'm hoping to be able to get the bravery to do so with future things like this. But I do drive down there quite a lot on the way to the Civic Centre. And I'm repeatedly seeing people crossing in 2 lanes of traffic. Sometimes they can't see the second lane, people with children, buggies. And I don't think this should wait for a further development. It just needs to have those bubble pavings taken out because they're obviously there historically from another time. So I would just like advice on how to follow that up. Maybe I'll just email you outside this meeting because
I can assure you
away from this report.
that item will be noted in the minutes. It'll be noted in the minutes, so we will follow up. Thank you. Councillor Nash. Would you switch your microphone on, please?
So I noted as you were talking in relation to the inclusivity, and you were using words as we'll refine the plans, adjustments can be made in relation to the visually impaired, when actually this should be part of full consultation and design and not an afterthought. And to enforce Councillor Haig's comment, if these paths were designed with disability access needs at the heart of the project, this would make it accessible for everyone. And therefore, disability needs need to be a priority and not an afterthought, and not just a, we'll refine it, we'll adjust it. They need to be at the heart of everything we do to make it equal for everybody. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nash. Councillor Hill.
I just want to raise an issue related to the Clifton Hill contraflow. In the report, you refer to making it safer, reducing the risk of accidents and so on and so forth. But is there any data related to any accidents? How many accidents between cars and cyclists have happened in the last 5 years, for example? Is there any information on that? Because it's only mentioned, it only mentions in the report about reducing the risk of accidents, but there's absolutely nothing in the report about any data related to it.
So there are currently no recorded accidents on that section.
Okay, so so it's fair to say that it's pretty safe as it is.
Oops, we're now going to roll back. Whether did you have your hand up? Let's take you first. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of things. I'm quite. The Greens have been campaigning to address the safety issues that Councillor Wright was talking about on Paris Street Roundabout for 3 years. It did come to Hattock. Councillor Whitton at the time as chair said a report was going to come back to this committee on it, and it never did. I can't find it now, but actually Andy and I in particular have been campaigning actively in this, and the bottom line is it's huge money, and the Director of Development for Exeter City Council, if that's his right name, Ian Collinson, has said Paris Street Roundabout is a massive urban dinosaur. It needs to be changed, but you're talking millions of pounds to address it, and it's not just the bubble pavement. It is a very big issue, but yeah, absolutely, it's something that, and I think it falls above this committee in the end. My query is Denmark Road. Peter, you told me specifically that I said, why is that in the original walkover with councillors, with the ward council, sorry, I'm the ward, one of the ward councillors, Denmark Road being segregated, that bit that Councillor Hay was talking about, that was in this project. Then it was removed from the project, and I asked why, and you said to me, I think something like because it's going to be covered by Exeter City Council. So I'm confused now. Is the Denmark Road bit next to the what was the pyramids, is that going to get done or not? Because I agree that, you know, coming out of the wonderful Newtown bit and then you go to that terrible bit of pavement by the pyramids with the tree stumps and everything.
Yes, those
What,
works.
just clarify what's happening there, thank you.
Yes, those works are included. The tree stumps will be removed and the surface will be relaid to make it smooth and accessible to all. There will be no further alterations to that section.
So it won't be segregated. No, that, okay, thank you. The other thing is just to say, as the ward councillor, I've literally had one person say something negative about it who lives on Clifton Hill and is particularly upset about the contraflow. All the other feedback I've had has been completely positive, so I did just want to share that. So I do commend the recommendations to everybody. Thank you.
I've got to, but Councillor Ketchin next.
I was just a bit concerned of the idea that in the public domain we wait for accidents to happen before we acknowledge a place is unsafe. I've got lots of stories on Clifton Hill of a perceived danger because it's a desire line for cyclists coming down that hill, and it has been for many years. It's slightly intuitive to imagine cyclists coming down a hill and cars coming up it, and as we aspire to encourage people to make choices that are theirs, that they should feel safe to do so. In the same way that the RNIB encourage partially sighted people to have safe choices, so should cyclists.
Councillor Richardson, not normally have many bites, but as your graduation day, another bite of the cake today.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a slight point of order. If a councillor has addressed me directly, do I not immediately get a right of reply after that, or do I have to wait?
If you're adding a point of clarification in regard to something he said that's incorrect in regard to what you said, you know, if he's paying you a compliment, I wouldn't have thought you would necessarily come back.
Okay, yeah, it was just in response to Councillor Nash, just exactly hear what you're saying. And of course, if it is true that the RNIB were not originally consulted, then that is obviously something that we'll investigate. So just to reassure you on that, but yeah, apologies, that's how you felt.
And I assume by we, you mean Devon County Council?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I've been involved in this project for 5 years as a lead councillor on Exeter City Council with overview of Live and Move and this partnership project. So I know it very, very well. In fact, during lockdown, I remember sitting in my home, which I couldn't leave, on Zoom with, I think it was Peter, with his phone, going down through the route and sharing it with the group that couldn't meet, but we were still doing the work. So very familiar with the project. It's a shame, actually, that the previous Hattock committee had quite in-depth presentations on this and had a lot of opportunity to input. Lots of information was exchanged, and it's just the way things happen that, unfortunately, people at this table now haven't had that opportunity. But that's the way it works with elections, etc. This shouldn't really be confused in any way with the standard view of an LTN. It's not an LTN, it's not Hevertree, this is something completely different. But if I do link it to Hevertree, what I would say is that there was a lot of criticism of the way the scheme was built up and consulted on Hevertree. This is the exact opposite to that. This has been building for 5 years. And it didn't come out of a vacuum. It came out from consultation with the community, and it's built up layer by layer, entirely driven by the community. And it's had a range of adaptations, and I think some were mentioned, but there's many more to the scheme. As it's grown through these 5 years, things have changed. Somebody's observed something, somebody's commented on something. So I am a little bit surprised the RNIB haven't been included. I know I have heard comments from a range or relating to a range of disabilities, and I'm fairly sure I remember having comments relating to people with limited vision in the build-up. But as I say, it's been a long time. So and that's both formal and informal. We've seen some of the formal consultations, but this is a long scheme where we've spent a lot of time thinking through and listening, always listening. So one of the things I would ask Peter is that 2 consultations were up on the slide, but I know a lot more has happened. So I wonder if you could give some indication of what sort of community involvement and other stakeholders involvement outside of those formal consultations we saw. And also, I think Councillor Kitchen started to clarify it, but if you could give some rationale around the inclusion of the Clifton Hill element. I mean, in essence, it's cyclists going downhill, whether you say they can or not. That's the design line. That's the way they want to go. And if a car isn't expecting that. But anyway, if you can give the rationale to that. I think it's one of the things as well on the consultations is that there's almost a little bit of consultation fatigue going on here. The community has been asked and asked and asked, what do you want? Oh, right, we'll do that. How's that? So when we look at those latest results, we are actually looking at the end of a long journey. So when there's only 50 odd people, it's because a lot of people have already said that they like it. And I would say, just with relevance to consultations, positive responses are the hardest to coax out of in consultations. You can always get a no, not here, not now, this is bad. Always get that. But when you look at those results, and as Councillor Whittenhall said, all I ever hear is what's good about it. But people are very quick, and rightly so, to identify and to comment on something they think isn't right. People aren't always so quick to say, that's going the way I think it should, that's a good idea. Not so quick. So I just thought I'd put that one up there. But certainly, I think the things to be very aware of is that it does not in any way stop a vehicle going across this area. This isn't Hevertree. We're not stopping a direct route. What we're doing is making sure that the range of users of the pavements and the roads are done in a consideration for all the different users. So you have people using mobility scooters, wheelchairs, bicycles, walking, cars, vans, lorries. So in that range, all sharing the same space, this scheme helps those users to be aware of and to respect and to keep the other users safe. So it doesn't stop any vehicle going across the whole scheme. And as I say, it's driven by the community. The community's asked for this, and they're the ones that live here. And I think the other thing to remember when we think about this community is it is right on the edge of the city centre. I'm out in Pinhoe. I would struggle, I think, to feel as comfortable to walk and cycle into the town as often as you could if you lived in Newtown. You can go into town, forget something, go back in again. It's not very far. It's right on the edge of the city. Everything's on their doorstep. I mean, if you had a car in Newtown and you were going to drive it into town, you'd probably end up going right away around and parking in the Guildhall Centre, which is a bit mad, and you can just walk up. So I think this is a unique kind of setting right on the edge of the city. We're encouraging shared use, but we're also helping to make all users of that space safer, and it's more attractive. One of the core things as well is to kind of lead up through a comfortable shared space into Beaumont Park, which is a great resource for the city, a very popular park, and it's just, yeah, it's a great scheme. I'm really pleased to have been involved in it for this amount of time, and I think it will make a great improvement to that area and a great addition to the city. So just those two questions, but also just to highlight, I would like to make a recommend an amendment to item G there when we get to it. Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, no problem.
Remember what the questions were?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Wood. Yeah, we have been involved in this for 5 years, and I do remember doing that, walking up the hill. It was a bit of a mistake, but anyway, I got out of breath too quickly. In terms of community involvement, I've only listed the high level ones in this particular presentation, because if I went through all of the community involvement that has happened over the past 5 years, we would be here for a number of hours. That's through face-to-face conversations that I had with members of the Belmont Church, with the Leonardo Hotel, the schools right back in 2021. That was taking place, those initial conversations, through to informal engagements that have happened through the Wellbeing Exeter programme, the Community Builder and the CPAO that have been assigned to the area. That was then refreshed again in 2024 when the 10-week consultation was running, with face-to-face conversations taking place with the school and other local organisations. Since that consultation has gone live, I've had 3 meetings with the local shopkeepers to address their concerns. There's been no closed door with this scheme. It really has been, someone's raised something, okay, we'll pick it up, we'll respond to it, we'll make the adjustments. So the short answer to why I haven't listed all the community involvement is because it would be a very long presentation and you'd be bored of my voice. Sorry. With regards to Clifton Hill, you're completely right. At the moment, there is an existing informal behaviour taking place of cyclists cycling down there against the flow of traffic with no warning to motorists that the cyclists could be coming towards them. For me, the worst situation at the moment that's taking place that I've heard of through the consultation is cyclists are taking to using the footway rather than staying on the carriageway, which makes it, you know, it's very narrow there. It's in between parked cars. It makes it more dangerous for anyone walking up that. So the inclusion of this aspect is to keep cyclists on the road, to make it formal where they are so the motorists expect them to be there. The adjustments to the parking is purely to provide a passing place in the centre of that parking strip. So it means that clearly a motorist travelling up the hill can see a cyclist coming towards them, pull in, the cyclist can continue on down, and the pedestrians can continue moving on the footway as they should do. So really the inclusion of that element, despite it being one of the simplest and cheapest elements of the whole scheme, is to formalise and improve the existing behaviours that are taking place there.
Could I raise four points? One is through a letter that's come to me from one of my own constituents about this, who's very concerned about the nature of disabled. So I'll just read an element of the email. The IA for disability, pages 15, 16 and 17, gives members the assurance that access conflict will be positive. Could you clarify for members a couple of things? One, does the design respect and follow the road users hierarchy, i.e. disabled pedestrians above cycles? If so, presumably, what will oblige a cyclist to stop to allow a blind person to cross a cycle path at a delineated point as described? Note the blind person cannot see the cyclist if courtesy is waving them across. Two, exactly how will ongoing monitoring or shared use, top of page 17, be done, and what criteria will be used for assessment? For two member of public in my residence. Second point, possibly a little more straightforward. The City Council has been dealing with 2 separate applications in regard to Clarendon House, which is on the junction of the Triangle car park, and various schemes have been put through to us about improving access, etc., into Newtown from there. Does that play a part at all on any of the decisions that we're making today, or does this jigsaw puzzle fit in with what will happen there? Thirdly, on recommendation F, it is to approve the advertising of the proposals for Clifton Road shown in Appendix 5. If no objections are received, what happens if objections are received? What is the process there in regard to that? If objections are received. And lastly, in relation to item G, which I think Councillor Wood mentioned to me, and I picked up myself, it's quite encouraging that the role of Hattock, I've got something to do, the local member's got something to do. Why isn't there a member from Exeter City Council representing them if there's a proper partnership? Sorry, that's my 4 points.
With regards to the priority between blind people and cyclists and crossing, I would have to refer to or understand each in specific juncture to be able to answer what specific infrastructure is in place. But yes, it will follow the priority. Thank you. Please do so. With regards to ongoing monitoring, it's my understanding that there is additional funding potentially aligned or available within the portfolio to monitor the scheme. So those discussions will be going on as we get to the implementation stage. Clarendon House, I'm unsure of the exact amount I can disclose, but yes, the proposals that have been taken forward as part of that scheme are linked in to what has been taking place on Western Way. And conversations are underway with Exeter City Council. The objections, I'll defer to my colleague.
Yeah, regarding the objections, as I mentioned earlier, obviously, if there's no objections, we're obviously seeking approval to proceed as advertised. If there are objections, if there are significant objections, it would need to come back to this committee. If there are not significant objections, we would resolve those with the local member and the Hattock chair through the delegated powers, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, with regards to the partnership of recommendation F, recommendation F deals with the advertising of a traffic regulation order that is under the jurisdiction of Devon County Council. Therefore, it's the members of Devon County Council that would have to resolve that. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Again, it's to do with the authorisations to do the jurisdiction of the 2 committees, but Exeter City Council would have involvement in the initial discussions.
So if I can make an amendment, I propose, because it's a partnership, it's been 5 years in the growing. It is a partnership initiative, and bullet G says in consultation with, so that gives no power of over the spending process. But where it says in consultation with the chair of Hattock, I would like to take out the word and put in the local member, and then put in and Exeter City Council lead councillor to make amendments to the scheme as required. That just means I'm consulted. It doesn't mean I have any influence. I'm just aware. And it recognises that it is a partnership project and that we're all still at the table. That's my proposed amendment.
Reply whether there's any constitutional reason why that cannot be incorporated.
I think, Chair, there's no issue why we can't include that one. For clarity, having gone through the pot, I realised there is a slight omission, and obviously I've just shared screen with a slight amendment to recommendation F. to include it doesn't really change the issue because it's obviously stuff that's shown on the plans, but we still need to statutorily consult on the road hump changes that are included in the plan, so they need to be advertised. So it's just a minor tweak to F, where we're also seeking to approve the advertising of the road hump changes shown on the plans, and to implement the road hump and make some traffic regulation orders if there are no objections received. Yeah. If comments are received, then obviously we go through the process we've just debated. So it's just a legal sort of issue to cover that off now, but obviously I've included the recommendation, the changes in G that we've just discussed as well.
Any discussion on the amendment to the new the new G, adding in an extra city council lead councillor into the consultation process? Yes, Councillor Reid.
So who is the lead councillor? What makes you the lead councillor?
It's just being modest.
I'm the portfolio holder for that includes within my portfolio Live and Move, which is the our project that has kind of driven this. So as Exeter City Council and Devon County Council working in partnership as they should. And so I'd just like to see that through to the end, really.
Just wondering if that is clear in the wording. Would it be better to be portfolio holder?
Instead of the word lead council.
Or the appropriate portfolio holder, isn't it? Yes. All right. So can we vote on that just on that? Seconded. Yes, yeah. Just seconded, and Laura's. Can we just have a vote clearly on item G to amend that? Then we can do the substantive on the whole block. So all those in favour of the adding of an extra city portfolio holder? It's unanimous. Thank you. Carried. Now could I have a proposer in regard to recommendations A to G as amended? Sorry, I need a proposer in second. So the ward division members proposing, and Councillor Ketchen is seconding. All right, so that is duly proposed and seconded. Are there any amendments to A and G subsequent to the one that we've just made? No. Sorry, Councillor Nash.
Could we have somewhere in here, and I know I'm harping on about it, about the working with disabled groups other than the Inclusive Exeter? Could that be part of the core process?
I'll take the officer's advice, but I think this is statutory wording in regard to a process going forward. I think the comments you made will be in the report, and also a response from the officers will be included in the report. But
I think just for clarity, is this for this scheme or is this for all schemes going forward? All schemes going forward. I think obviously, I think it's standard practice anyway. We should be doing that one, but I'm happy if we can note it in the minutes or add it as a recommendation. I don't know what your thoughts would be on that, Wendy.
I think we have some in the background. It's very difficult to hear sometimes. So if I could just ask, just listen to the committee. Thank you.
Last year, the Transport Planning team did do a presentation on inclusive design, so how Devon County Council work with various different groups that represent people with protected characteristics and how that's embedded in the design of our schemes. Obviously, recognising that we've got quite a different committee here now, would members like us to repeat that? We could do that as a separate session, or we could do it as an item at a future HATOC.
So you're happy for this to come to our next meeting if possible?
Yes, Chair.
Sorry, can I propose myself?
That's a sort of. Vote in each one in order then?
Guys, just one, do we only have one position on this?
We only have one.
We definitely only,
Can't see a problem if there needs to be, if you wish to have another, have to.
Councillor Wright.
Sorry, just to clarify, did you also say that the position, there could be a sub?
That's what I was asking. We weren't clear about the response.
We haven't had one in the past, but I can't see why it wouldn't be going forward. It makes sense.
Right.
Can I just ask, does Exeter City Council have a representative on the bus forum, just county?
So we have 3 nominations. We have 1 post to award. And if need be, I would suggest you might want to make the second highest voted person a substitute for the first, if the first isn't able to attend. Right? So you'll be voting on each one for or against or abstaining, and the one with the highest total of the 3 will be the one appointed. Is that? You're voting 3 times. You're voting on each one, or do you wish to do with 3, or do you wish to vote for? You can't wish to do it separately or all together. All right, separate. All right. So we'll stop. We'll do it. Oh, what? Yes, yes. Don't expire. All those in favour of Councillor Stevens, please show. That's 5. Right. All those in favour of Councillor Wright, please show. So you can vote for yourself. All those in favour of Councillor Richardson, please show. Right. So after that vote, Councillor Stevens, sorry. No substitute, right. They've looked at the terms of reference. There's only 1 and no substitute. Under our system here, Councillor Neil Stevens has been appointed to sit on the Stakeholders and Bus Forum. Thank you. Next is item 10, actions taken under delegated powers. Any reports to note? Just the report which is in the agenda pack to note. All right. Any questions or any points on that? Next item is the date of the next meeting, which we've already got quite a busy agenda so far, is for the 9th of October 2025. And I thank you all for your attendance and therefore close the meeting. Thank you.